Information fueled,
opinion driven. This is Nashville's Morning News with Dan Mandis.
And so, my fellow Americans,
we talk news.
7:06 on Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Good morning to you, friends. Dan Mandis here along with Joan Jones. KGB, Jeff Malinoff, is producing today. Aaron Host, citizen journalist, is joining us. There is so much to talk about with EJ, and I'm always so glad to have her on. EJ, thank you very much for joining us. And EJ, I just called you a citizen journalist because I think that's, number one, a great way to describe you. But you have also have a great background in talk radio and journalism as well. And I appreciate having you on Nashville's Morning News. Let's talk a little bit about the continuing resolution. This is, I think, number one story today. But, you know, there's a lot of number one stories today, so let's just dive right into it. Republicans and Elon Musk specifically torpedoed this piece of legislation. And I think, number one, it tells you the importance that social media is playing these days. That's number one. But number two, I think it shows you that Republicans, especially the conservative Republicans, they're on notice. They're being put on notice that you can't let this kind of a continuing resolution pass full of all of that pork.
Yeah, I agree. I think the power of the people, the voice of the people, has definitely amplified over the course of this discussion about the CR. Media is jumping, traditional media is jumping on board also. I would only caution this, though, because it does feel a little kind of Overton window-y, right? Like where they put together this CR, and whether it was Mike Johnson or Hakeem Jeffries or the rest of them all working together kind of in that deep state swamp, right? Mm-hmm. They put together the CR that they knew was going to cause a lot of strife. They knew it was going to cause a lot of uproar with all the silly things like, a stadium in DC and all. I mean, everybody's seen all the pork that's in this thing, right? And 1,500 pages, et cetera.
Yes.
So they knew that was going to happen. And now they can come back and say, well, we pared it down and we made it clean. We see this happen all the time where you propose this big thing, you make it sound like, we really, truly want all these things, but then you don't really expect to get them. And so I do just kind of caution, to think that Trump and the rest of the team didn't know that was probably part of the plan, given the fact that Mike Johnson the speaker is just in that inner circle, right? So I don't know if this is all optics or if it really truly is, what they thought it was with the CR. But either way, you're right that the voice of the people definitely stepped it up and got this thing squashed. So that's a good thing. But yes. I just want to caution everybody into thinking, this is kind of how these things go every single time.
EJ Haas joining us. This is why I rarely cover these things, because and I've said this forever, it's always the same thing. You've got the hysteria, the panic, the anger, the vitriol, the finger pointing. I said this earlier in the broadcast, and it's always the same thing, which is you get all of that, and you've got all of the palace drama and all that kind of stuff. And then ultimately, it may shut down for a little bit. It may not, but it's always kind of the same thing. And I think for Elon Musk to jump in, I thought that was hysterical. You also had Donald Trump and J.D. Vance also jumping in. I did think it was interesting that Trump is asking for a raising of the debt ceiling. And that surprised a lot of folks. And I think that what Trump wants to do is he wants to come in with some room to maneuver after January 20th so that when he gets in with the new Congress and the new Senate, they do have some room to maneuver. But there was a lot of Republicans that were surprised by that.
Yeah, I'm surprised by it also, only because I think with immediate cuts to, if we can actually accomplish immediate cuts to spending, I mean, just stop sending money to Ukraine. That'll help a whole lot, right? Yeah. There's a lot we can do very quickly, but it does take, we got to remember, it's not a dictatorship. That he's not a king. He can't decide everything, by himself. There is Congress to consider. And unfortunately, we've got a good amount, as we've seen this week with the CR discussion, we've got a good amount of Republicans who are just as difficult to deal with, if not more, than the Democrats. And so I think it's probably they're thinking long term. I just tend to think short term and say we'll just cut a whole bunch of the spending right away.
Sure. One of the things that, and you mentioned Mike Johnson, Speaker Mike Johnson, and I had Andy Ogles on, Congressman Andy Ogles on earlier, and we're talking about the future of Speaker Mike Johnson, because we all remember what happened last year when Kevin McCarthy was the speaker, and that turned into, of course, as everyone knows, an absolute train wreck. And the reason why it turned into a train wreck was because nobody had any faith in Kevin McCarthy. Well, there's a lot of Republicans out there right now that are saying that Mike Johnson has now put them in this position. And people are really frustrated with that because they wanted a clean bill to begin with. This is Anna Paulina Luna.
The fact is that, look, this is a sandwich. I don't know how else to say that. We're being forced into this position. They could have done a standalone. They did this because they knew that it would put members in this position to support it. We're damned if we do. We're damned if we don't.
Thomas Massie also said, I'm not sure if Johnson is the right guy for this job. So my worry is if we end up having a speaker revolt coming into the new session, then it's just going to distract and derail everything that Trump wants to do. What say you?
I 100% agree. And I'm not a huge Mike Johnson fan, but why do we always end up with the infighting? Like, we won. Let's just take the win, right? And do good things with that win. It baffles me every time when we get somebody new, at the speakership, or we finally take over the Senate, or we finally take over the House, or whatever, and then we immediately start fighting each other. How about we just focus on doing good things, what people voted you to do, right? We voted for you to clean up the border, to clean up the crime, to clean up the budget, to get the America back to the state that we want to be in, which is, a superpower, the American superpower. Put America first, period, end of story, and then stop the infighting. And I think it's very easy, but unfortunately our DC elites try to make it much more difficult than it has to be.
Well, yeah, and it's kind of a sticky wicket too, though, because the Democrats, they're just a bunch of lemmings, and they follow the speaker, or they follow their party line wherever they go. We all know how the Democrats act in the House of Representatives, by and large. Unless you're Joe Manchin. But, the thing is, here's the problem that Republicans have is that by character traits, the Republican Party and Republicans and conservatives, we are free thinkers. And we are all about debating as well. So on the one hand, you're right, EJ, it would be nice not to have a train wreck of a speaker battle. But at the same time, we have to make sure that we as a party are aligned behind the right values. And so now there's a lot of debate. Josh Hawley came out. I was stunned by this. Josh Hawley came out, and he wants to raise the child tax credit to $5,000.
I saw that.
And so I'm going to talk about that coming up next with EJ Host. It is 7:15. Time to check the roads on WTN. All right, very good. Thank you. High today of 47. No rain in the forecast. Thanks for listening to Nashville's Morning News. EJ Host is joining us. All right, EJ. So what do you think about Republicans having this discussion? By and large, Republicans have not necessarily been fans of child tax credits, and now all of a sudden Hawley is calling for this, and people are saying, "Oh, it'll increase the debt," and all of these other things. I understand that, but J.D. Vance brings up a really interesting point when he says that the Republican Party is pro-family, and this, some would say, is a pro-family initiative. And I think there's a lot of conservatives that are stuck on this one. What say you?
Yeah, so we just learned, in fact, I'm going to talk about this tomorrow. For those who don't know, I'm filling in for Chris Hand tomorrow, 9 to 12.
Yeah, she is.
Yep, very excited about that. I'm going to talk about this a little bit because I think it goes deeper than just a tax credit. And listen, my first reaction whenever I see something like this is, wait a minute, what does that mean exactly? But I will say this. I would rather have tax credits across the board or just decrease my taxes or take away income tax altogether, right? Like I'm one of those, stop taxing us so much anyway, all people, no matter whether you have children or not. However, as it relates to this in particular, there is something to be said for increasing the population of native-born Americans, right? Like anyone who is born in America is an American, right?
Yep.
And so we need more people that are not immigrants. And that sounds kind of harsh, and I don't mean it to sound that way, but just in general, as a nation, if you look at it from a much bigger, like look at it globally and over the course of mankind, you have to keep reproducing. And right now we know that our population rates are decreasing, or fertility rates are decreasing. And so if this is an incentive to have young people produce more children, I kind of understand where Holly's going with that. In fact, there was a study out, the Institute for Family Studies basically said that total fertility rate by county is increasing in Republican counties. So Republicans are more likely to have babies right now than liberals are. And so, I think there's more nuance to this debate than just, hey, let's, give $5,000 to people when they have children. And I don't think it's all bad. I just think we have to dig into it and kind of find the root causes of it. And then also, how can we also decrease the taxes for the people who don't have children? Because they deserve it as well.
Well, here's the deal. I mean, I had a couple kids and I raised them up, and Mike, and I'm putting aside my bonus kid Riker, but my point has always been, a lot of people are talking about this on the Super Text line as well, is older folks who they've already raised their kids and they didn't have perhaps the benefit of tax credits, child tax credits, or people that never had kids at all. And so you bring up an outstanding point, which is, all right, so what do you do for the people that don't have kids? Some people are also saying, by the way, well, this is a populist agenda and it's not truly conservative values. I agree with you, EJ. This is a conversation that I believe the Republicans need to have. I'm not automatically against anything. I'm always willing to look at things and let my mind be changed by changing factors, right? So I'm perfectly willing to have that conversation.
Yeah, I think so. I think it makes sense to talk about these things. For those who don't have children or whatever, well, it didn't cost you as much to, live your life necessarily as those people who had multiple children. So it kind of washes itself out a little bit, but we also need children to grow up and become workers and producers and citizens of our society. And so I understand where they're saying there should be an incentive to have more children, right? Mm-hmm. I get that. I also think it's worth having a deeper conversation about the actual impact, though, on our tax system, on literally everyone who's a working American. Like, is it fair? Yep. Because if it's not across the board fair for everybody, you're going to run into resistance. And so, it's a conversation worth having. I'm not immediately opposed, but I do think that it's such a nuanced thing that it's not something we can just say, yep, do it, pass it.
Well, and as long as everybody acknowledges that a lot of Republicans and conservatives got really angry when the Democrats would bring this to the table. If we're willing to change, by and large, our conservative stance, that's fine. But let's just all be honest about what's going on. EJ, tomorrow, right? Tomorrow,
yes.
9 to 12. Yep. I'm so excited about this. You are filling in for Chris Hand. So child tax credit. What else you got?
Oh, we're going to talk about news of the day. I've got some conservative gift ideas for those family and friends on your list if you're not sure what to get them. We've got a terrific guest in the second hour that I'm very excited about. We're going to talk about 2A. This is a guy who was in Las Vegas during the shooting. So, yeah, we've got big things planned for tomorrow. All
right. Can't wait. How can people find you on the socials?
Yep. Go find me on X at EJ Under the Radar.
And I want everybody to know that EJ, she's having some voice issues, and EJ, like every other person on this radio station, has asked to borrow some slippery elm and some throat coat.
Yeah, but did you tell her the limitations?
No, I left that part out, John.
Leaving it up to me.
I'll let her know. She's not going to OD like I do. 15 a day, but AJ has asked for a couple to take care of the voice, and I'm glad to help because I'm a big EJ Host fan. I cannot wait to hear her tomorrow at 9.
And you're a Slippery Elm dealer.
And I'm a Slippery Elm dealer. That's exactly
Yes.
right. I am the hookup in the building, apparently.
Yeah.
All right. What's coming up in the news?
Got a new twist in that Madison school shooting. There has been another arrest. Tell you about that coming up at 7:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Dan Mandis here for Brentwood Jewelry. Listen, Christmas is just days away. And with it, terrific deals from Brentwood Jewelry. They make Christmas shopping really easy. Now, think about your loved one opening up an incredible gift like a watch, earrings, or a ring at a price you can afford. Now, you can also get a personalized piece of jewelry that is unique as the person that you're giving it to. Now, listen, Brentwood Jewelry, you walk in, if you're starting to, guys, this happens. You're starting to sweat. You got 7 days left, whatever it is, and you need to get in some last minute shopping. I highly recommend Brentwood Jewelry. Now, for ladies, if you're looking for that perfect gift for the guy in your life, they have a great selection of watches. They have an incredible selection of pre-owned Rolexes as well. So if you're looking for your better half, man, woman, mom, dad, kids, whatever, Brentwood Jewelry has a great selection of everything. Merry Christmas from our friends at Brentwood Jewelry. Shop in store or online, located at 7012 Church Street East in the heart of Brentwood. Online anytime, BrentwoodJewelry.com.